I'm Tabitha Rose. I'm a dreamer, I'm a storyteller, I'm a truth seeker, I'm a truth teller. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Life to Paper Publishing, and I help people put their life stories to paper, and I guide those life stories to inspire the hearts and minds of people all around the world. I started doing what I do. It wasn't by choice. I didn't study it. It just happened, and I'm so grateful it did. So, my grandmother.
Hello, my name is Eva. I'm a woman, a mother, and my favorite role in life, a grandmother.
Talked about wanting her life story written. She talked about hiring a ghostwriter, and I was working in capital markets. But one day I just felt the need to say, why don't you let me get started? And she said, okay. So we did. I had this hobby life story writing project on the side, outside of my job. I didn't follow a guidebook or any course or ask anybody for help. I just followed my instincts. We started sitting down. She started telling me her stories. I was extremely curious. And then she said, if we're going to do this right, we have to go back to my home country and retrace my steps, and I'll show you where things happened. And it was on this trip that something really special happened. I felt a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time, if not ever, and that feeling was peace. Previous to that, I only remember feeling restless all the time. No matter what job I was in, no matter what I was doing, no matter even where I was traveling to. It was always restlessness. It was always what's next. This isn't good enough. This doesn't feel right. But as I was sitting there, and I remember the moment, I was visiting cousins of ours who had a vineyard. I'm sitting there with my notebook and I'm writing, and the rain's coming down, and I felt for the first time that there was nowhere else I was supposed to be but exactly there. So we left. I went back to my job, not knowing really what to do with this feeling. And slowly things started to fall apart in my life, mentally, physically, spiritually. I think that's the universe telling you, pay attention. So first I was getting shoulder taps, like, hey, listen. And then I was getting a bit of slaps. And then because I didn't pay attention enough, I had a full knockdown, and I got fired, and I got sick, and I even collapsed. I ended up in a hospital on my way to Texas, collapsed on a plane. And then I started paying attention. I had to. And I ended up working with a magical mentor, I call him. And the first hour of talking to him, he had me talking about this hobby life story writing project with my grandmother, which I hadn't actually been working on for a while. And he said, you know, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, this and only this. I said, no. And he said, yes. I said, how? And he said, well, just take one step forward and then another. And then you're in the arena, you're in it now. And so as terrifying as it was, it felt right, and that peace was restored. And I kept going. And now I haven't turned back, and it's been over 5 years. I think what happened, honestly, is that with my grandmother, I didn't follow any course or guidebook. I just followed my intuition. And I cared a lot about her story, and I was extremely curious. We did the work together in her kitchen and on walks, and we took this trip together and retraced her steps. So that informed, the next time I went on to work with somebody, it kind of set the bar. For me to work with somebody, it means spending meaningful time with them, caring a great deal for them, being curious about them, going places and retracing their steps, especially to create the imagery. When that story comes alive in my mind, like a movie, that's it. I know I have it. I care a lot for my clients as I care for my grandmother. There's always this moment, and it happens with everyone. It's a little different. Sometimes it's just a look we share, sometimes it's in words, sometimes it's an I love you or a hug, but the line between client and family is crossed, and I know that they'll be in my life for the rest of my life. And I think having worked with her first, that just set the bar. How I spent time with her and how we went through the process became my process. And even when I've tried to waver from it and say, oh, maybe I should do it a little bit more like this person, I've always come back to the process that initially I went through, which is what was led by my intuition. Like, it was just my intuition guiding me through, asking questions. It was guided by my heart. It's just that I care, and there's compassion, there's empathy, and there's insight. I would say that I have something that's called critically compassionate. Critical in a way that I ask the right questions in order to help someone find the right answers they're looking for. It's like a critical analysis, but with compassion. So they're method actors, and I like to think of myself as a method ghostwriter. Each individual client, their voice, their body, spirit becomes alive in me while I'm working with them. And that's why it's important for me to spend meaningful time with them. You know, just like with my grandmother, the first time I was in her kitchen while she was cooking, you know, smelling her food, or going for walks, getting on planes. I do the same thing with clients, whether it's listening to their music with them, smelling their foods, going for drives in the car, taking walks by the ocean, or, you know, retracing steps, going to the steps where them and their wife locked eyes for the first time 50 years before, and understanding what their perspective looked like when they were standing there. I do all those things. I even have experiences, and this is really personal, where a client has gone through something traumatic even before I was born at a place. And I now visit that place. And there's a way that my heart beats a little faster when I go to that place now. Now, this is not something I experienced, but it almost is as a result of me having worked with them and put their life story to paper. It isn't my trauma, but it almost has to become for me to be able to do this work. When you think, how can you do that? I can. What else would I be doing? This is what I love. And I love to be able to take that reader on the journey as well. I believe the story should start out with a reader, that reader's heartbeat, being able to fall in line with the protagonist and continue on for the whole book. I like the books to be movies. I love when people finish one of the books I've written for someone and say, that was a movie. I mean, people ask me, oh, you're a writer, you must spend all your time in libraries. Well, I don't. I love music, I love film, and you know, my libraries and where I get all my stories are at people's kitchen tables. That's the truth. You know, are in conversations with strangers, which is one of my favorite things to do. People who know me know I sometimes am not on time, and that's because of these conversations with strangers. I have some of the most unbelievable discoveries and aha moments from meeting people randomly and the serendipity that happens in my life. And it's a shame we live in a world where there's so few of those moments. There's just not enough. And I see people and they're purposely disconnecting from one another. When we have so many opportunities to connect, we say, we're so disconnected. This process isn't therapy, but it is therapeutic. What it does is it allows an individual to reflect on their life and come to find, at any stage, at age 20 and age 89, and see that we've all lived our own hero's journey. And often next to, in those caves and after slaying those dragons, or right next to our wounds, we all have gifts. And we can start delivering those gifts to the world and help contribute and make the world a better place. And that is our purpose. But only after having reflected can we come to know that. And this process can be, for people, that fork in the road, you know, that leads to this whole new path. My dream is to see a world where everyone is able to engage in this process. So my dream come true, the future that I'm hoping to see in my lifetime, is one where everyone can chronicle their life and go through a process where they reflect on their life and come to realize their own hero's journey and put it into this library, and families have their family library of memoirs. And those memoirs, wouldn't it be amazing to go into your family library and pull out your great-grandmother's memoir, or great-great-grandmother's memoir, and read about her life. And not only like on Ancestry.com, where you see the historical facts and the flat narrative about the dates and things like that, but you're able to understand and feel what she felt during a moment in history. Understand what it felt like for her to fall in love and have her heart broken, and then pick back up again. Or your grandfather to build a business and lose it, but then rise again, and what he learned along the way. That's the world I want to see. And what it would take, and the only thing that it would cost, the only exchange that it would cost is for someone to be willing. It wouldn't cost a thing. And the reason being is because I believe this process is so transformative. I believe it has the ability to transform body, mind, spirit. I believe it could be someone's fork in the road. I believe it could be someone's healing process. I believe it could be someone's closing the loop at the end of life and finding peace. For me, I've had a transformative process in my own life. All it took for me was to be willing. So I want to give that back to people. Having created a process myself, this is my service to others, and I want it to be free, and all it requires is for people to be willing to participate.